Hello all and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be rebuilding the Content OS, which is currently featured in Notion's official template gallery. But in this video I'm going to be going step by step through how I built it in the first place, and we're actually going to rebuild it together inside of a new tool called Flotion. If you don't have Flotion, don't worry, everything in this video can be recreated inside of a regular Notion workspace. I'll also be linking to all of the separate components that go into the build in the show notes below. So before diving into the build, a quick distinction between a content plan and a content OS or a content hub. And the simplest distinction is that our plan is going to be our roadmap, and our content OS or our content hub is going to be the operational side of things. So the plan is where we're going to lay out the direction, the objectives, the strategy, and the hub or the OS is where we're actually going to implement that plan. So that's where we're going to actually write things, do our research, create tasks and actions. In this video, we're going to be building a content OS or content hub, which of course you can use to help develop your content plan. I have another video walking through content strategy and how you can actually create that inside of the content OS. So you may want to check that out somewhere around this video. So the first thing I'm going to do is just remind myself and remind you all what it is that we're going to be recreating and building in this video. So this is the Content OS. Sometimes you'll see it listed as creator or creator model. It's the same thing really. And this is our home dashboard, which is kind of a summary of a lot of the things that are going on inside of the workspace. In the left, we have our synced menu. So we have a section for our planning, we have a section for our actions, and a section for performance. Now, we don't need to go into too much detail in all of that right now. I just want to kind of get a quick overview and reminder of what it is that we're actually going to be building in this video, hopefully rather quickly in Flotion, but also in a way that you all can follow along. So this is kind of our end result that we are working towards. We've got this planning section with some separate tabs. We have our actions board, which is linked up to our campaigns and different projects. And then we have a performance section, which is going to include a Google Analytics embed. This is typically quite helpful for content creation and maybe YouTube if you're using YouTube. I can also probably discuss any other analytics platforms that you might want to embed using Google Data Studio. So this is what we're working towards. The task we've set for ourselves is to rebuild it from scratch. So let's get into that part of the video. As I mentioned, I'll be using Flotion to build this new Content OS from scratch. But if you were creating this inside of a regular Notion workspace, you could just create a new page, maybe in your side menu, make sure there's a totally new workspace so that you can start fresh with this build. So let's just call it Content OS Rebuild. Now this is inside of Flotion, so it's loading a new flow, which is what we call new projects inside of Flotion. So that's loaded and we're ready to go here. Now there's a couple of things I need to do for the setup, so I'm going to fast forward through all of that and we will get back to planning the build. Okay, so we've got this set up now, and what I'm going to do quickly first is to just list out the pages that we need to build. While we're going through this rebuild, I'll probably be flipping back and forth between the original template that we're recreating and our setup. So that's hopefully going to come through on this loop recording. But right now I'm just going to list out the pages that are needed for this, for recreating this template, and we can work from there. Okay, so that's just a simple list of what we already know we're trying to build here. I'll probably leave the home dashboard for last, and what I can do right away is just start creating these pages in bulk inside of this new Content OS hub. And what I'm going to do to mimic the divider setup that we have in this original template is to just create a divider here in this menu so that we kind of can see where we have our planning section, where we have our action section, these kind of sub headings. We'll see later on if it's worth adding headings in there. Maybe it's just an aesthetic preference, but I'll keep building out these pages. Hang in there. So I can also name the page on the page itself, and it will obviously update in the menu itself. I've just been renaming from these pages directly because it's easier for me to remember what we're doing here. So you can see how quick it is to quickly generate new pages within your menu using Flotion. So I just hit this button and it spawns a new page with the exact same format. So first of all, it's much harder to get disoriented when you have this this quick generation new page button, and it also means that we can move quite quickly while we're fleshing out this skeleton for the OS. Now I don't actually need the map and DBs page since we already have one built into the editor, so I can actually remove that page. Move that. And now what we have is our menu, which we have here recreated. And just like these are distinct pages inside of this menu here, we already have all of our distinct pages as the backbone of this new Content OS or hub setup. So that's a good start. Of course, they're all empty, which is not very helpful. But fortunately, because I've already built the Content OS, all of these components, so for example, when I say component, if I go into this strategy page, this user persona gallery, you can think of that as a component. So it's a pre-built building block, which has a bunch of rich information inside of it. It has, demographics, and it has kind of a template for us to fill out. And it's also part of a database, which is linked to other parts of the workspace. So that's, if you would like to, if you're building this from scratch inside of Notion, you can of course create a similar database and create a similar template for yourself. You can also head over to landmarklabs.co, and if you create a free account or get up on the free trial for the components library, you can duplicate all of these components that are being used for the build. So if you want to use the exact components, but you're not using Flotion, you can also do that, and we will be dragging and dropping these components into our new pages. And if you are using Flotion, then you can follow along directly. So the strategy dashboard for our Content OS is going to have a couple of key components in it. Inside of Flotion, you can just access these directly here. So I know that we want to use a personas gallery and template, so I can drag and drop that in as well. I know that we want to kind of just a general workbook, so I'm going to scroll down to, I believe, the bottom, create a new notebook. It's not actually a new notebook from scratch. It is a linked instance of our notebook. I'm just dragging and dropping these into the space, and they are disappearing. No, they go up here. And if I drag this, it should be in the right spot, and we can tidy this up later. What else was in our strategy section? We had a competitors table, so we'll need one of those. I believe that's in our strategy section. Generate one of these quickly, drag and drop into the right spot. Strategic pillars, a research table, objectives. To be honest, this is a little bit messy, but I think that the research hub is going to be useful, so we can drag one of those in as well. Generate that quickly, drag it in, and we can do a pillars just to kind of help us summarize our strategy at a glance. So what I'm going to do is actually use one of these layout components, and there is a pre-formatted key pillars section. So obviously this is not very pretty just yet. So for now, I'm going to simply drag and drop the relevant components into the pages that we have, and you can follow along and do the same. We'll see how much talking really needs to be done for this part of the video. If the talking is not helpful, I'll probably just fast forward through this part. So just to be clear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be going back and forth, looking through the pages in this original Content OS template, and I'm just going to be recreating it inside of Flotion. So here's how you can do that. Turn this back into a timeline, and I'm going to group it by areas, which is how it's originally set up. Actually, in this Content OS, it is grouped by, let's check, areas. Yep, so we'll just have to rename and clean these up. What else do we have? We have a calendar. So I'm going to go to this calendar section, and there is a content calendar, so that's easy. Drag and drop this in. Don't need that space. We have an objectives and targets. So let's go to our objectives page. We didn't make one. It slipped through. So I'm going to create a new page. Targets. What am I saying? It's right there. Targets. It's just called targets instead of objectives. So I don't need this page. So targets, and I'm going to drag and drop an objectives gallery, all objectives, drag that in as well. We have our SEO page. There are a few more bits in this one from memory. No, there's just two. So we need a keywords database. So let's get one of those in, keywords table. Hit that, drag it in. We need some research database. We already made one of these in our strategy page, but this is a linked instance. So down here, I believe we created a linked instance of our research library with all the areas for our OS. And here we're just going to have a dedicated page that is going to be for our research. So instead of needing to copy paste from over there, we can just generate a new research table from this components library inside Flotion. So I'll just create another one of these research libraries so that we have a dedicated page for it. What else do we have? We have an archive. So what's in the archive? So there's content archives, there's a campaigns archive, and there's a bunch of footer text. So really, what I might do is just create a master archive inside of Flotion. So if you are creating this for yourself, the best way for you, so I'm going to cheat here. This is not very helpful, but I'm actually going to drag this into this archive page. The best thing for you, if you are following along and you would like to create an archive of yourself, for yourself, or if you'd like to copy paste, duplicate this archive. So this is just a series of views. So we have our content archive, our projects archive, actions, objectives. You get the idea. And it's just a simple filter where archive is checked. So for each of these particular databases, such as content, there is a view which has an archive option. So this is filtered to show ideas for content. But if I click into one of these items, I can archive any piece of content, just as I can archive any campaign or project. And what happens when I hit archive is that it will appear in the archive in the relevant area. So if you want to recreate this archive setup, all you need to do is create a linked instance of the database that you want, create an archived property, and just filter on and off for this particular property. Hopefully that makes sense. So we have our archive now. We need our actions and creation section. So first up on this is going to be articles. So that's listed here already. I think there's already an articles view, so that's easy, that's cheating. Articles, so this will be filtered to only show article type, so that's helpful. What else do we need? Videos. I don't believe there is a pre-built videos component. Maybe that's something I should develop, but it is going to be as simple as, so if we want to keep this same table view, we can, or we could do something similar to the brainstorming board view. In here, let's just recreate what we have in the content OS. So we have a board that is grouped by dates. So let's go to videos and let's create, what would be the easiest way to do this? Maybe we should just create a calendar. Excuse me. So we create another calendar, and what I'm going to do is add a view here, which is going to be a board. And what did we have? We had status in the top grouping. So group by status, that's fine. I'm going to hide the no status. I am also going to make it a little bit smaller, make the tiles a little bit smaller. We need to subgroup by dates. So head back here, subgroup by the due date. That's going to automatically create some relevant categories for us. And then we can just recreate the properties that are seen here. So there's a published, which is now archived in the new version. It's showing the date that it's due, and it's showing the type of content that it is, which is video. So I'm sure there's a filter, which is only showing video. So that's what we need to do here. I'm going to quickly rename this to videos. I'm going to adjust the properties shown. So we want the archived property, we wanted the due date, and we wanted the type. So now this particular view is showing the properties that we wanted. It's in the status. It's grouped by status and subgrouped by date, due date, but it is not filtered to only show videos. So I can create a quick filter here, type, video, and we are ready to go. Now these are not in the right order, so I would drag these status properties into their correct order, and depending on how you are actually producing your video content, maybe you want to keep the writing and the filming. Maybe writing isn't a part of your process, you could hide it, but this would be a recreated version of this Content OS videos board. So a little bit more effort on that one, but that's fine. So now we have our videos board. Tweets. So our tweets is also a board for our content master database. Okay, and I believe it is subgrouped by topics. So let's create another calendar. This is making me think maybe I should just have a component that is a board, a content board with the different statuses. So this is good to learn. Now I believe, since we just created this board view over here, we might be able to recreate it quickly using Notion's new databases. Maybe not. Maybe I just don't know how to do that. Okay, we have our tweets board. Unfortunately, we have to recreate that, so I'm going to have to think about how to mimic this view, since it seems to be quite popular. We need an emails section as well. Now, there are a couple of ways we can do this inside of Flotion. If you are recreating this from scratch inside of Notion and you'd like an emails table, you might choose to keep it as part of the master content database. So if I head over into the map, since you've already created a couple of these pages like the calendar and the articles list, you'll have a content master database that you're using. And you could include as one of the types email, so that while you're planning your content in the OS, you could just link that as a content type and make it a similar filter, exactly the same way we've done it for this articles, videos, tweets. But there's also inside of Flotion an emails table, which is more specific to email content. So I might actually just create one of those tables instead, even though it's not word for word the same as the content OS. I believe it's a bit of an upgrade, but like I say, if you wanted to recreate it exactly as it is in the content OS, you could simply do exactly as we've done for the videos and tweets, set the filter to be the type is email, as long as you have that email tag inside of your content database. So now we've got an emails table which has some more relevant info for emails itself. We need an actions board, I believe. So actions, what do we have here? We have it listed by campaign, grouped by campaign. So what I'm going to do is scroll down into our components list, actions board. Now, if you are using Flotion and you're not 100% sure where the components are, don't worry, because I also get lost as well, and I built it. So we have our actions board, except this is not set up the same as the Content OS. In Content OS, we have our campaigns at the top. Here, this is grouped by, but actually, there is a pre-built view, which is grouped by project, except this is subgrouped by project, and it is still status in the top. So let's create another view, since we said we would match it to be the same as the Content OS. What I'm going to do is probably just cheat and recreate this instead of the grouping by status. I'm going to group the top layer by project, and project is campaign. So we've created this campaigns timeline here, just as we have in the Content OS here. This database has been renamed to content campaigns in the original creator template. So we could do that as well if we wanted to just talk in terms of campaigns. And if we do that, we might also want to adjust it here so that it doesn't say project, it says no campaign. But I leave this to you. Campaign and project for me is quite interchangeable. So now we have our board of actions. Was there anything else on this actions board that we need to recreate? There's a few little bits and pieces. So the properties here are the area, I believe. Let's take a look at this one. Oops, that was silly. So this is what I need to hit. The properties showing are the name, area, status, and completed. So I can do the same thing here. Edit the view to show the name. I already forgot, area, status. So status is showing, okay? And the area is also showing. We haven't set areas for these tasks, that's why it's not showing up. But if I were to, they would show up here. Okay? So we have our actions board. What's left? We've got assets. Now, inside of Flotion, if you are using Flotion, there is actually an assets tab which is part of the editor mode itself. So that's handy if you wanted to just directly drag and drop assets like the icons into a certain page, and then you can turn into text and you have a copy of those assets dragged and dropped from the menu. But if I wanted to create this setup as a page so I can see my assets, let's see if there is an assets component, or I might just have to create a linked gallery. Browsing, time to do some browsing, operations, actions, board, master. There's not a component, so fortunately, this isn't too complex. We already have our assets database as part of Flotion, so this will be the database itself, which we can reference. Since I have a bunch of projects inside of here, I'm actually going to rename this so it's easier for Notion to find, and it's actually a bit of a hack that you can use yourself. If you have similarly named databases, or you're not sure, or if Notion search is a bit slow, you can always do a very specific name for the database that you're searching for, and then when I head over to this assets page, what I'm going to do is create a linked database, linked view of a database, and now I have to search for it. Now, fortunately, new databases in Notion seem to be much smarter, and so it's linked it here, but I could also just search that exact phrase and you would typically be able to find it much more easily. Copy an existing view, so that's handy. I can copy this gallery view and I have my assets database. Here I believe it's a bit bigger, so for authenticity, let's copy that as well. Layout, card size, medium. Does that look right? I think so. Tags are showing. Wunderbar. So what's left? Assets, workflows. Workflows are also part of the creator template. So we have our workflows page. Let's see if there's a component for it. I believe there is. Operations, workflows gallery. Hit that plus button and I can drag this in. Did it go there? It did indeed. What was the view? The view was gallery view, but it actually had some objects in there. So these are actually quite handy, and I don't have them. Or I do have them. Very nice. What I will do is edit the view to show the content so that it is looking just like this, except this one is grouped by various tags. So I can either hide these tags, rename them, or just remove that grouping if I wanted it to be precisely the same. So I'm going to keep the grouping because I think the grouping can be helpful for certain workflows. So you might have an SEO kind of category of workflows. You might have a video category. If you have multiple areas or categories of workflows, the tag can be helpful for making this workflows database a little bit more manageable. But when there's only 2 items, it's pretty manageable. So performance overview. So we're in the creator template here, so this is already ready, but this is going to be another easy one to recreate. So I'm going to head over to the overview. We might just call this performance since we don't have those tags or those titles. And there is a component for it, so I can scroll down into, actually, I forgot. So for these third-party integrations and embeds, there is a section inside of Flotion that is specific for embeds. So I'm going to create a Google Analytics dashboard. Whoa, and not drag it so far. Drag it in here. The guidance is included in the components because For some of you, it'll be your first time, and so you can actually click into the Scribe walkthrough and you can get the copy of the Google Analytics template in Data Studio that's actually powering this. So there's guidance on how to set this up as well inside of the component. And I believe there was also a YouTube Analytics. Yeah, so we can just add one of these as well. So I'm going to create one. I'm going to drag it below here, and that's done. Except I have to link this up as well, but I'll leave that to you. Reflections. What is in the reflections log? I think this is just a personal notebook, which for our purposes, we might just use the existing notebook itself and filter it to show, maybe we even just have a tag, which is called reflections. That might be an easier way of doing this. So what I'm going to do is filter it to show, okay, not archived, that's helpful. And the tag is going to be, so I'm actually editing this all entries view. I wonder if that, create a new view of the same one. Let's just, so I can call it reflections. We're going to filter it to show the tag equals reflections. Lovely. So if I create a new reflection, it should automatically have reflections as a tag. It'll have an entry date and we can keep track of things there. Okay, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think, except for the home dashboard, we have now built out the main pages in our menu here. We have added all of the relevant components for each page, and all that's left to do is to tidy this up so that our original Content OS template, which some of you may already be using, looks just like this one that we've recreated. So in terms of tidying, before tidying actually, I'm going to create this home dashboard because that's what's missing. So now it will be time for the tidy up, and what I would be doing in that section is either recreating these, the tags, the filtered views, the setup of these different pages, probably adjusting the icons so that they're more relevant for the particular section. But to be honest, I think that you get the idea, and that if you wanted to follow along and build something like this yourself, hopefully this video will have the main building blocks that you need to get that done. So what I'm going to do is I am going to actually clean this up, because this Content OS 2.0 is going to be linked inside of Flotion as a new template, so that when you start, you can probably start from this Content OS as a template itself. So that will be handy. And I will link below the relevant components to help you build this out for yourself. If you're using Flotion, you can follow along with this video precisely. If you're not, if you're just using your own regular Notion workspace, then I will link the components that you need in order to recreate this setup. So that's it for today. If you do have any questions about how to recreate the build, leave us a comment. And of course, if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see built next, you can make a suggestion in the same place. Thanks for watching.